Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World Martial Arts Radio Show. Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of being your guest host, Richard Hackworth, and my special guest tonight is the one and only Justin Harvey, the host of our show. So, Justin, welcome to the show. Now we have the tables turned and the microphone is pointed your direction.
Well, thank you, Richard Hackworth, and I gotta say I'm really shocked to know and to hear that you have the tables turned on me, because I'm not used to the tables being turned on me, but it's an honor to be here, and I'm very, very thankful and honored that you asked me to actually be in the hot seat tonight. So thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and I think it's going to be a real experience for our listeners, because there's a lot about you that the listeners haven't got to hear before. And so tonight we're looking to make sure that we kind of fill them in on your many accomplishments and your background, and basically kind of let some of them know, too, that this has not been an easy ride for you to become probably, I would say you're the most dominant martial arts-related radio show host in the industry now, but it wasn't always this easy. Could you begin by telling our listeners a little bit about your background and what some of the struggles were that you had to overcome?
Okay, well, if you want me to start with the radio stuff, I can actually start there, and then we can, move into the whole, martial arts aspect of things. Well, back when I was in high school, I would always listen to my favorite radio station, and it was actually a dream of mine to actually be on that radio station. Well, I ended up, my senior year of high school, I ended up getting to meet my favorite DJ that was on there at the time. He was at our, it was like job career day, where you got to, have different speakers for job day, and so it happened that my favorite DJ was there, and once I got into job shadowing, here's some good news and some bad news. I actually got to do one day of job shadowing, and keep in mind, Richard, none of the radio stations or TV stations around here are handicapped accessible. So what I had to do was I had to have physical assistance to actually walk up a flight of steps to be able to job shadow for one day, and there were some at the radio station that felt that I didn't need to come back, that I wouldn't be able to do the job because of my disability. Now, the one DJ that did my job shadowing, he was the exact opposite. He always encouraged me. He thought that I could do it. And as a matter of fact, that day that he job shadowed me, and we went on the air, Richard, he was not scheduled to work that day. It was his day off. He actually volunteered to work with me that day. So,
oh, nice.
So after my disappointment, Rich, obviously, I was heartbroken. I always wanted to be on the radio, so I kind of did some research once I did, get internet in my room and stuff. I did research, and I heard of a thing called podcasting, and I said, hey, this sounds like it would be right up my alley. And once I learned about it and found a site, I started podcasting, and then I started, doing local, just local small martial artists, and then I guess the word got out, and I started interviewing, celebrities from there.
Actually, when you're talking about the word getting out and starting to interview celebrities, I think that you're being a little humble, because I think what our listeners don't know right now is that you've interviewed actually some of the biggest celebrities in the history of martial arts filmmaking, world champions, and elite grandmasters. So, I mean, the people that have been on your show are like a who's who of the martial arts and entertainment industry. As a matter of fact, right now, there's a 2-year waiting list to be a guest on your show. So I think that really tells us a lot. And for me, I feel almost like, I discovered the gold mine there, because I was searching for someone to help us with our podcast for World Martial Arts Media. And so I went to YouTube, and I was watching a lot of different shows and listening to things. And when I got to your channel, and then on Blog Talk and TalkShoe, and I was just finding you at all of the big outlets for podcasting. And what impressed me the most was not just the number of shows that you had done, but the quality of the guests that you had and the consistent level of professionalism you displayed, all on your own. You didn't have any sponsors back then, but you were doing everything all on your own. Is that true?
That is very true, actually, because I was doing all the contacting. I was contacting these celebrities and kind of giving them my background, and then on top of that, I was doing, back then I was doing all the editing, posting, promoting, and, it got tedious at times, and because, for example, one time I was up at like 6 in the morning, and Rosita de Jesus says, "Do you ever sleep?" And I just laughed at her at the time. I said, "What's that?" I said, I'm busy working on my podcast. I got to stay on top of it if I really want to get my name out there. And eventually, I think that's when you actually found me and approached me about coming on board with your network.
Yeah, I would. And then I found you on Facebook. We became friends on Facebook, and then you had been, like I said, doing your own show for a while. And not only that, I found that, personally, we had a lot of things in common. I know, like, with the martial arts, you'd been a student of Frank Dukes, but had also done Hapkido, which is one of my primary martial arts. And then the other thing was that not only that, but you had accomplishments outside of the martial arts industry that a lot of people probably aren't aware of. And would you like to go into tell us a little bit about your involvement with the professional wrestling industry, for example?
Okay, well, where to start, Rich? I actually go to a camp where I actually help disabled individuals every summer. Well, one of the gentlemen that goes to this camp, he's got the same disability that I've got, and he started running his mouth, which he's good for, and he's like, I can kick your ass in a wrestling match, blah blah blah, and he's talking a lot of smack, and of course, I'm laughing about. So what I decided to do at the time, I went to this wrestling promoter that was putting on a free show for the kids. And I said, this dude's talking a lot of smack. I'd like to have a go at him. And he says, all right. He says, what we'll do is we'll put you two in a championship match, and y'all can go at it and see what happens. And the first year, I ended up winning, and then the second year it was a draw because I had some health issues going on, and even though I had some health issues go on, I still defended my title, and if it's a draw, you don't lose your title. you know that, Rich, because you're, a pro wrestling veteran yourself. And then once he got tired of getting his butt kicked, he says, I don't want to face you no more. And I said, cool, I get to retire undefeated. So
there you go, man. And well, your experience in pro wrestling went beyond that, because later you were actually the commissioner of a pro wrestling company, were you not?
Yes, I was. I was commissioner of Harvey, actually. So and that was a lot of fun, Rich. And I tell you what, even if it's for a different company, I would love to do that again.
Oh, I understand. And then now that we've kind of covered some of your background with the pro wrestling and the martial arts, would you care to talk about your experience as a songwriter and independent music producer?
Okay, well, this kind of ties into my martial arts, too, with my music career. What I wanted to do, since I was a big fan of the Bloodsport film, I actually wanted to do my own version of Fight to Survive from the film, and I ended up meeting this guy that me and him were really good friends at the time, and he had his own recording studio, and we actually completely, redid the track, and we would actually perform it live in different clubs and bars and things, and not only that, Rich, but before I ended up stopping my music career, I actually wrote my own song called My CP Prison, which is a negative song, but I wanted to kind of show the negative side of what a person could do even though they have CP. There's I wanted to show a negative side. You could either be negative or you could be positive. So the choice is up to you. And then I ended up doing a comedy song with a friend of mine in the studio. It's called I Stole Slate Dumb Spear, and it's a really funny song. And what's funny about the track is you can hear a beer actually cracking open during the song, and that's an actual beer. And I'm drinking beer in the studio while recording this. So.
Well, that's a coincidence, because we happen to be sharing some beer in the studio today, but this is a little more relaxed format.
Yeah, I'm out of here, so I'm having coffee. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have an excellent for you.
Sounds good to me.
Back to your martial arts career. I know a lot of people are curious and questionable, but you actually trained with Frank Dukes, the guy that the movie Bloodsport is about. And can you tell us what led to that in your interest in kickboxer and Bloodsport?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll try to make the answer as short as possible. But well, when I was 3 years old, get this, 3 years old, I was watching movies like Bloodsport and Kickboxer and people like Don the Dragon Wilson. Well, once I saw the movie Bloodsport, I immediately, fell in love with the movie and fell in love with martial arts. Well, as I got older, I kept doing research about Frank Dukes. Well, it was always my dream to meet Frank. And do you remember when MySpace was a big hit back in the day before Facebook? Do you remember the MySpace days, Rich? Okay, well, once I signed up for MySpace, it was actually my personal mission to actually find the real Frank Dukes and it was not easy to do because there's like 100 and some people claiming to be Frank. And when I found his MySpace page, I ended up, messaging him a couple of times, and then about a year later, a mutual friend of ours actually, I expressed to a mutual friend of ours that I was a big fan, and he actually gave me Frank's number, and I called Frank, and then I waited about a year later. I get contacted by this organization that's no longer in business, but what they would do is they would grant wishes for people that were that had certain illnesses or disabled, and they said to me, "Do you know somebody that would want on wish that's disabled or sick or something?" And I kind of laughed, and I said, "I'm disabled. I got cerebral palsy." And they're like, "Well, how can we help you? What would your one wish be?" And I said, "To meet Frank Dukes." And they kind of laughed, and they said, "That would be kind of hard to do." And I said, "Well," "I've got Frank Dukes' number." And they're like, "Can you please give that to us?" And I said, let me call Frank. And of course, this was the year before, and I didn't expect Frank to really remember who I was. So I called him up, and I said, "I would really love to meet you, sir." I said, "This organization wants your number. This is what they do, and they want to help me make it possible. Can I please give them your number?" And without hesitation, he said, "Absolutely." And then within that night, Richard, everything was set up for him to come to West Virginia to meet me.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was a wonderful experience. So.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, and
now,
believe it or not,
weren't you involved with helping like some other kids with achieving their dreams and things?
Oh, I've like I said, I've worked for a special needs camp, but I've also my senior year, I actually did some advocacy work. I actually worked at the Capitol as a page for our governor at the time to get better transportation for disabled individuals. So.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I know some of our listeners are probably waiting for the break, but actually tonight, because this is a very special interview, we're coming to you commercial-free. So this is a commercial-free episode of the World Martial Arts Radio Show featuring Justin Harvey. Now, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the martial arts, because I know you said you got into like watching Donna Dragon Wilson and Frank Dukes and Cynthia Rothrock. There are various people that you've kind of followed their film career. Of the various martial arts styles, which ones have you had the opportunity to practice?
I have studied Duke's Fast, which is, Frank's style that he loves to do, and I really liked Hapkido when I studied with Grandmaster Summers for a short time. I really liked that style, and and I've worked with a little bit of knife fighting as well. I really enjoyed that. But there's a few styles realistically that I would not be able to do, but I would love to do. Like, for example, I would love to do Muay Thai. I would love to do Muay Thai. So.
Now, of all the martial arts celebrities that you've interviewed in the past, who was your favorite?
Oh, that's actually a tough call. I'd have to say that if I had to choose, and I know a lot of people are going to think that I'm going to choose Frank Dukes, but I'm actually going to go a different direction and say my top two has to be Don the Dragon Wilson and Ernie Reyes Jr. Ernie Reyes Jr. and Ernie Reyes Sr. And believe it or not, a lot of people were envious that I actually interviewed Don because people tried to get Don on apparently, and they just could not make it happen. But the way I kind of made it happen was I actually for a solid year or so, I would actually call Don's office every day and leave a message. So.
But you've had him on multiple times. Is that true?
I believe I've had Don on twice. But I would, I tell you what, I would love to have Don on again because they're getting ready to film the Martial Arts Kid 2, which I'm actually, I donated some money to make that film possible, and I think it's really going to be a good film.
Now, so that's a joint project that he's doing with Cynthia Rothrock. Is that true?
Yes, it's actually, that's true, and they've got cast Sasha Mitchell, which we've not seen Sasha Mitchell in a movie in a long time. So.
And is he playing a bad guy in the movie or a good guy?
They have not specified. They just said that, he is cast in the film. So they've not really given any particulars on what the plot and stuff is going to be.
So now, for our listeners, if they would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Best way to reach
email
me
or
is
Facebook or.
Best way to reach me through email is the Justin Harvey Show at gmail.com. That's actually the best way to reach me. But if they want to reach me on Facebook, they can reach me at Justin Harvey on Facebook. And I'm on Twitter, but I'm more on Facebook than I am Twitter. But I will answer tweets if I do get tweeted. So.
Yeah, and you're also on YouTube?
I'm on YouTube, but I don't do it a whole lot because I hear that YouTube has been censoring a lot of people's videos, and that is something particularly I don't agree with because I'm a firm believer in free speech. So.
Now, tell us a little bit about the early days of your show, because I know that like you paid for everything yourself. You got your own equipment, and so what process did you go through to be able to do that from a home studio?
Okay, well, what I did was I tried Blog Talk Radio, and to me, Blog Talk Radio, for its price, I didn't feel that the sound quality was good enough to be paying for the service, because I remember the first year that I was with you, and I could be wrong, but I think the first year I was with you, I ended up paying $400 for the entire year just to have that service, and it was just for a 2-hour block, so it wasn't cheap. And what I did was I said that I wasn't limited, that way that I could record all hours of the day, what I did was I actually found a phone app to where I could record my phone calls 24/7 hours a day. And then what I would do, I found a free website where I could just upload the content, and then I would just record it and then go through the editing process and then upload it.
So once you got started with your shows, did you pick like a niche market at the time to specifically do martial arts, or did you also do pro wrestling, or how did you choose your topics back then?
Well, when it first started, Richard, let me explain it to you this way. When I first started with my podcast, it was strictly martial arts. Well, I actually got the idea of my podcast by just watching Kickboxer one night, and I said to myself, how cool would it be to be able to have a podcast and, maybe reach out to some of these guys and, and talk to them. But then as I started growing, my podcast is not just a martial arts podcast. It's more entertainment based, because a lot of your listeners don't know this, but I'm actually good friends with Bruce Hart of the Hart family, and he's been on my podcast on numerous occasions, and we've talked about pro wrestling on the podcast.
And I think that as time went by, I know in the early days you were like searching out different celebrities and stuff to have on your show. But like I said, now it's reached the point where people contact World Martial Arts Radio, and there's a waiting list to be on your show. And so when people ask about like the growth and everything of World Martial Arts Radio, then for me, that's a big point to put out to people that not only has it grown, but you're actually in demand to the point to where, like I said, a 2-year-long waiting list to get on your show. And I don't know any other show host in the martial arts industry that can say that. And can you tell us a little bit about what you think makes your show popular with not only the guests, but with the listeners that's generated that kind of prestige and authority as a podcaster?
Oh, okay. Here's why I think my podcast is popular. I've seen, first example is I've seen other podcasts that are martial arts based, but what they will do is they will post a show every single day or every single week. Well, there was times that I would go several months without posting a show because I was a firm believer more in the content and the wow factor of the show. I think that's why it was so successful. Not only that, but a lot of my fans knew about my disability, and I think it just wowed them that, here's this guy that's got this disability, and he's not letting anything stop him. I think that had a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah. And do you think that that's also the reason for your strength and popularity on social media sites? And because you've kind of been, growing popular on not just Facebook and YouTube, and actually some of your shows, like with, I believe there was one of your shows that had over 100,000 views on YouTube, and that's pretty powerful. And then at some point, you had been so involved on Twitter, and it started gaining a following there, that there were people that were calling you the Twitter ninja, Justin Harvey.
Yeah, and I believe you're speaking of the Muhammad Kisi interview. He was the original Tom Poo from the original Kickboxer series, and he's a really cool guy, and you know, and I can't say this for a fact, but even though I don't know Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'm pretty sure he probably knows that I exist. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And then also with, now when you interviewed Muhammad Kisi, I kind of looked him up, and beyond the films, he was actually a boxing champion in Morocco. And,
Yeah.
you know, you've interviewed boxing champions, wrestling champions, martial arts champions, martial arts film stars. And so I think that, you know, your slot here with the World Martial Arts Radio Show is going to do nothing but continue to rise and gain popularity. And we're looking forward to it. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, there's one thing that I would like to say. And, you know, a lot of people may not realize this, and you may not realize this, Rich, but the only celebrity, big-time celebrity in the martial arts that's ever turned me down for a show is Mr. Steven Seagal. I actually called his personal cell phone, and he turned me down, and then he didn't really give me a chance to finish me stating my case. And you know, to me, that was a big letdown for my fans, because I really thought that was going to be a really good interview for the podcast. So, and it's like this. I hope I get big enough to where he actually reaches out to me. So, because I feel that
I was just thinking that.
Say that again, Rich?
Oh, I said I was just thinking that. I think that as your, you know, popularity grows and your star continues to rise and shine, that there's going to come a time when he maybe reaches out to you for another chance to be on your show. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see that happen.
Yeah, and one negative thing that I will say about my entire career, like I'm a friend to a lot of these people, and I've actually had people use me to try to get close to these people, and then once I, you know, let them in the circle, so to speak, then that person just drops me, which I've made some changes.
In the back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've made some changes to that, and when people ask me, you know, can you give me this person's information, or can you help me meet this person? And I'm like, I'm sorry, man, but you're on your own, you know, because these people, number one, they're entitled to their privacy, and number two, I myself, I don't like to be used for anybody's games.
Yeah.
So
now, I know you had mentioned Steven Seagal, but if of all the guests that you've had on your show, as far as the celebrities go, who was your favorite guest as far as the way the show went and how they responded to the questions?
That's a real tough one, Rich. Does it have to be martial? Does the guest have to be martial artist, or no? Can it?
Oh no, just who was your favorite guest? Yeah, any celebrity guest.
Okay. I'd have to say my favorite guest was Kathy Kinney. She was actually Mimi off of the Drew Carey Show. That was by far my favorite.
Now, I was wondering, actually, that was one of my favorite shows of yours, was the interview with her. And so I'm not surprised to have you pick her as your favorite. Now, out of the non-celebrities, like martial arts grandmasters that you've had a chance to interview, is there anyone that stands out in your mind that you'd like to get back on the show again?
Let me think just for a second here, Rich. I'd have to say non-famous. I'd have to say that, gosh, that's a tough one. Well, I do remember interviewing you one time. That was pretty interesting, Rich. I mean, that was a lot of fun, and learning about your time in Japan, that was really, really cool. There's just so many to choose from, Rich. It's really hard to answer that question to really give you a good answer to that.
I asked is because there's several of them that have requested to be back on the show because they personally enjoyed the experience of being on the show with you so much that they would look forward to trying to do it again. So
I tell you, my top two favorites is Master Richard Hallman and then Bodie Sanders. He was a real pleasure to work with on the Martial Arts Radio Network. Because if I'm not mistaken, Rich, just as soon as we got off the interview, I think he called you immediately and was impressed with my work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember that conversation and call, and he's definitely on the list of people to return in the future. We just got to see how that falls in the schedule. But is there a closing statement that you'd like to make today for the listeners?
Yes, sir, I would. Number one, just because somebody has a disability, don't judge a book by its cover because they may surprise you. And number two, if you're afraid to fail, you've already failed. But if you're willing to fail, you've already succeeded. And don't let anybody tell you you can't do something because only you can be that deciding factor. And another thing too, don't let the politics and martial arts get you a good grandmaster that is true to the martial arts. That's very important.
Well, we definitely appreciate those words of wisdom, and I know that we didn't get a chance to talk about everything tonight, so we're definitely going to have to do this again sometime. And I think next time I'd like to start off with the fact that you, as a show host, have won several awards, and so I think that would be a good place to pick up with next time. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you from the World Martial Arts Radio Network. This is Richard Hackworth saying goodbye, and have a good night.